Hello, everybody. I'm a bit late posting this video, but let's talk about the winner of the International Book of this year. In case you've not yet heard the news, the winner of the International Booker Prize 2025 is Heartlamp by Banu Mushtaq, translated by Deepa Bhashti. This is a selection of 12 short stories taken from Banu Mushtaq's long career in writing, translated from its original Kannada. The stories focus on the everyday lives of Muslim women living in India. Hello, everybody. I'm back and very glad to talk to you about this year's Booker winner. Much to my surprise, this was Heartlamp by Banu Mushtaq, a book that I already had but hadn't got round to reading. And if any of you saw my original video predicting the outcome, you will all know that I got it very wrong and that I was absolutely nowhere near in terms of predicting this one. So very surprised, but after having read it, I think it's an absolutely worthy winner and really recommend it. And that's me recommending it as someone who doesn't usually particularly enjoy short story collections. But really, this was an absolutely fantastic book, and I'm going to tell you about it now. I'm going to try and do this spoiler-free because I'll tell you a bit about the themes of the stories, but I won't give anything away because a lot of these stories are quite fable-like, and most of them, you do feel like you get a point or something happens during the books, or not twists, but developments within the stories. So each of them feels like a complete work in themselves, really. There were only two of them that I didn't really get. One of those was Red Lungi, I think. The other one was called Soft Whispers or something like that. And those two stories I felt were the weakest. I didn't really feel like they didn't really have the same flow as the others. So most of these stories feel very complete in themselves. Some of them feel like they have a moral. Sometimes they feel like they're a particular portrayal. Some of them feel very inevitable in the way that they kind of go from one scene to another. They're all very, very well set out. These two I found a little bit more loose, as in, it wasn't quite as tightly plotted, and I wasn't entirely sure what I was supposed to be getting out of them. But 10 out of 12 for a short story collection is brilliant. And throughout reading this, I really did feel I got a flavour of the lives of these women and, how life is for them. Themes of the stories are, well, there's an awful lot about how terrible their husbands are. This book tackles some very, very big issues. It tackles domestic violence. It tackles the way that women are treated in these cultures. It tackles poverty, class difference, the religious hypocrisy. I think religious hypocrisy is one of the biggest themes throughout this book, because there are so many times when characters don't behave in the way that they are purporting to. So whether that's a person who's got a strong position in the community, who's supposed to be distributing kind of funds from, for a charitable organization from a religious perspective, and aren't doing their job in the way that was intended, or whether it's someone who is treating their spouse poorly, whether it's someone who's outwardly behaving one way and then contradicting themselves in their behavior later. Hypocrisy is a huge, huge theme in this book. It tackles all sorts of human failings, whether it's kind of whether it's laziness and ambivalence. I think the short story that's quoted on the front of the book is about someone not prioritizing something and then, later coming to to wonder about their decision. And like I say, a lot of them have quite a fable-like quality in that there is a moral lesson you're learning from this. Some of them are just very sad stories of things that have happened, the reality that often women face, and what can happen if we don't intervene to help our neighbours, if we don't intervene to help the people around us, and if we don't follow what we know to be right, and how our sometimes very human failings can lead to actual destruction and damage and regret. Like I say, there's some big themes tackled within these pages. Having said that, I didn't come away from this book with a feeling of despair. The writing is very warm, and the the interactions between the characters, and they all ring true. They're very human, and there's a lot. It's more like the stories are giving you something to contemplate rather than trying to hector you. I think a lot of books that tackle big issues fall into the trap where they try to be voyeuristic about it, and they use the tragedy and they use the sadness to entertain. And when something feels like it's gratuitous, when it's done in a way that it feels like it's using kind of other people's miseries as a form of entertainment, it can sometimes, if done in a tacky way, be quite unpleasant. But even though lots of bad things happen within these pages, you feel like these are real characters and real people. You feel that they are being told compassionately and being told with warmth, and that they are trying to teach you something, and that they are trying to lead you to an understanding. And she's a wonderful writer. She really is a wonderful writer. And I can absolutely see why this is a winner, because she takes you right into these women's world. You never feel like she never, even though some really dramatic things happen, you never feel like she's laying it on too thick. You never feel like she's doing it for effect. You never feel like that. You feel like she is telling you these stories. She is a wonderful storyteller, and the way that the dialogue is between the characters, the way that you're taken into their daily details of their lives, it really does create a sense of place. It creates a sense of community, and you feel like you have an understanding, even though they're from a completely different world. A lot of their day-to-day lives, morals and things are very much based on scripture. They're based on Islam, whereas I grew up obviously in a secular, well, I went to church school, but I grew up broadly in a secular manner. And being taken into it really does take you into a completely different world, and make you care about these people with very, very few words. You become invested in their lives so quickly. And some, like I say, the first four stories were all absolutely fantastic. I'm just going to try and have a look at the index, just to kind of give you a bit of a flavour of them without spoiling any of them. So there's one where a man becomes obsessed with a pair of shoes that his sister-in-law is wearing, and makes some questionable decisions because he can't stop thinking about these shoes that she got from Saudi Arabia. Heart Lamp, which is the titular story, was extremely emotional because, like I say, a lot of the themes in these stories are mistreatment of women, and the way that their lives can be completely shattered by decisions that are out of their control. And we do have a lot of power difference within these books. There are sometimes stories of retribution. Sometimes retribution is found. Sometimes things are balance the scales and people regret their actions. But often that doesn't happen, and the story is very much just showing you there isn't always a hero to save the day, and that makes them just as affecting, really. The very last story I felt was probably quite subversive. It's written as a woman writing to God, and I read that and I thought, wow, I mean, this is, for a start, it's powerful writing, but also, like, I'm surprised. I'm surprised by the level of. Yeah, I just found, like I said, I just found it surprising what a subversive piece of writing it was. It's hard to pick just one that I thought was great, because they were all fantastic, and they all conjured something for me. The ones that stick in my head, yeah, obviously, Heartlamp was a good one. The Shroud's weirdly stuck in my head. Yeah, the first four were all excellent pieces of writing. So overall, I would give Heartlamp 4 stars. Short stories, again, they're never going to quite get under my skin in the same way that a full-length novel would. That's just a taste thing, and it's just what can be done with the medium. I I have read some truly, truly fantastic short story collections, and this has got to be up there. I think the only short story collection that I've given 5 stars to was the one by Raphael Bob Waxberg, Someone Who Will Love You in All Your Damaged Glory. But even that book, thinking back, I'm not sure I can remember as much about it. But I will have to find out whether or not in 6 months' time these stories and these characters are still in my head. I may even read them again. The translator at the end has put in a note talking about how they decided to translate it while still leaving in some of the original Kannada words. And they've also said that they did not italicize them on purpose, and that they're generally against italicization in general, which I think is interesting. And certainly the way that this particular book was translated was done in a very immersive way, and the kind of mishmash of languages. I mean, the translator's job is to make sure that the reader who is reading the translated work understands it. And it's to convey the point and the essence of the original work to a new audience, so that people can have, so that the work can be circulated more broadly. And in that, she's very successful. The Kannada words blend very well with the English, and I think she's done it mostly in an excellent way. To campaign against footnotes and italicization, I mean, there is a little bit of a trade-off for accessibility. So obviously, there were a few words I had to look up as well, which is fine. I can Google them. It's not an issue. But I mean, there is something to be said for having a glossary at the end. And even if you don't want to footnote it, even if you don't want to italicize, and even if you don't want to asterisk or anything like that, even if you don't want to flag it up, it is useful to know what some of these words mean, because there are several, like, in my head I could still have, most of it you can surmise, but there were still words that I was thinking that could mean one of several things, and I'm not entirely sure. So there were a few lookups from that point of view, but I absolutely see her point, and I think it is lovely to kind of have them blended and incorporated in that way. It's it's a beautiful thing, and I love reading translated fiction, but I also love learning new words. And the whole point of reading a lot of translated stories is that you get a broader worldview, and that you're brought into these worlds that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily have come across. It just was all about extending that human experience, and I thought this was a very touching book. Gave me lots to contemplate, made me empathize with a lot of these women's lives, and I thought this was a wonderful winner. I'm very happy for it. I still don't think, even if I'd read it, I still don't think I would have predicted it as the winner. I don't I don't think I'd have seen it coming. But I'm very, very glad that it has won. And yeah, well done. well done to both Banu Mushtaq and Deepa Bashti. Fabulous. And I hope, in the words of one of my friends who was talking about the prize, I think it's brilliant that I think this is the first work translated from Kannada. I'm not sure about that, so don't quote me. But she was saying basically that she hoped that it would lead to more books being translated from lesser known languages. And yeah, because I'm certainly up for reading them. Thank you so much for coming with me on this journey into the International Booker Prize this year. I do still have a couple from the long list on my shelf that I will be reading. The two that I can think of are Solenoid and Eurotrash. Don't know if they're going to be any good, but I will review them separately, with or without spoilers, depending on what I feel like. I'm not sure Solenoid is going to be spoilable, really, because not much is happening. But it's yeah, I will try and put out reviews for those. I am now looking into the Women's Prize shortlist. I have already read two of them, and I'm currently reading The Persians by Sanam Majoodi. I've not got the book with me. I think that's what she's called. And the book, yeah, so I'll be telling you all about that one soon. So there's going to be lots of literary fiction content to come. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you all soon. Take care.